Hey there guys, it is me Alex, and today I'm going to show you how to play WCW Nitro, the trading card game by Wizard of the Coast. Now in this game, the goal for both players is to play action cards, wrestling moves, things of that nature, and to do enough damage to where you make them flip over enough cards and run out of cards from their deck. That's the prime objective. The way you play is by putting your wrestler onto the field and then putting your deck right beside it. And then your discard pile goes to the side or above, however you choose to flip over and remove the cards when you take damage. Each wrestler has unique features that I feel need to be highlighted first, and that is on the very top they have 3 colors. Each of these colors represent what type of cards they can play. And the way that determines that matters for cards is that, as an example here, this card, Somersault, uses a blue 5. That blue 5 in the bottom corner for the D, that determines how much damage the card does. But the most important part in this example is that it's blue. So for this character, he can play a blue card. However, there are purple cards in this magenta cards, I should say, that are in this deck that Jeff Jarrett cannot play, and they are not found in his deck, which is the orange deck that I have sleeved up here. So for him, he can only put blue, green, orange, and then neutral cards, which are white. As you can see up at the top here, there is a blank blue, a +1 green, and a +1 orange. Those symbols, the +1, means that he can do +1 damage when using damage moves that use that color. So that uses an orange, uses a green, he does an additional +1 damage. Now, the second important part is in the lower left corner here. You'll see a number followed by like a spiral sign, I think it's supposed to be like a splash or something. That is the reputation of a character, of a wrestler. Reputation is used in several cards to say, like, oh, if you have lower reputation than your opponent, you do this, this, and this, bonus options. But the main thing that is used for is for winning conditions, as well as your starting hand. So for this one, 8 is the number for Jeff Jarrett. That means he can draw 8 cards at the start of his turn. Not the start of his turn, at the start of the game. Each turn, there's different rules attached to it, but this is this important part here. So he has 8 reputation. He draws 8 cards at the start of the game. Then there's the centerpiece right in the middle here, where it gives his stats followed by his name. Then he has a special ability. The special ability applies to once a round. He can do this special ability where he gets 2 extra action points until the end of the turn. A round is 1 match. So it's one game of playing. And those are the crucial things to know about your character card. Some cards make it to where you can play it when it's not your turn, but in theory, most of the time, it's usually just played on your turn. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'll start drawing some cards up, and then show you the turn-by-turn action. I did a quick shuffling of Mr. Bagwell's there, and I'll do simultaneous turns to highlight everything that's important. So Mr. Jarrett draws 8 cards, 7, 8, and Bagwell draws 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so when starting a game, the things that are important to know is you need to determine what style of game is being played. What the conditions are. Uh, both games, um, you either decide, are you playing a round or are you playing a match? And that's kind of confusing for wrestling terminology because a match is a match, it's a one-time thing. But in the WCW Nitro game, a match is a best of three, or 2 3 points, however you can get to 3 points. So you need to determine if you're going to do a round or a match. If you just choose to do a round, you just try to make them lose enough cards from their deck until they lose, and then game over. You don't have to worry about it. If you do a match, the reputation of the two opponents are a factor. So in this example, the difference is 7 and 8, so it's a 1 point difference. If it's a 1 to 3 point difference in the reputation, whoever wins gets 1 point. It doesn't matter what their reputation is really, because it's in the 1 to 3 point difference. They only get 1 point for winning. If it's a 4 to 6 difference in reputation, so let's say Buff Bagwell has 3 and Jeff Jarrett has 8, that's a 5 point difference. If Buff Bagwell was to win in that example, he would get 2 points. Meanwhile, if Jeff Jarrett was to win, he would get 1 point. And then in the most extreme examples, if there's a 7 point reputation difference, the person with the lowest reputation would get 3 points. So he could just win once, and then game over, he'll win because he'll get the 3 points required in a match. Meanwhile, the person with the highest reputation there, which would be like 10, 3 to 10, he would only get one. So that's the important part when starting. Now, moving on, after choosing which style of game you're going to be playing, this one we'll just do a round because it's just all examples anyways, is the person with the lowest reputation goes first. So for right now, Buff has 7, he goes first. So I drew the cards that he got. He got 3 Nitros, and then he got a bunch of Thunder cards, and then followed by 1 move. I will now go into detail describing what each of these kind of cards do. This is kind of like the perfect storm because it shows all three main styles of cards that are played in this game. So a Thunder card, like this one called Dodge, is it has a handprint symbol on the top, which you probably can't see too well because of the focusing. And then the second one is the deck, where it's a white rectangle silhouette that represents the deck. So what happens is you either can play this from your hand with the hand symbol, or if you take damage and this card flips over, then you use the deck symbol rulings. So like as an example here, this one says discard this card to stop 1 damage from this attack, and this attack is always referencing like the attack that your opponent's doing. And then the one from the deck says stop the rest of the damage from this attack. So if you were to get hit with something that said like 7 damage, and this was the first card you drew, you would take 6 damage after. You would prevent 6 damage. If you were to stop, if this was like the last card to drop to flip over, it will not count as you stopping an attack. That's important because there are certain cards that do bonus damage if you stop an attack, or allow you to be pinned by the opponent. And if you are pinned by the opponent, it does not mean you lose instantly. It's kind of strange that way, again, because of it being wrestling. But if you pin somebody, they lose a certain number of Nitro cards based on what the card is, because there is no manual rule for there's no manual rule for pinning. A card will say you get to pin this guy after you do this damage, and this is how much they lose if you pin them. things like that. None of these cards in the starter decks have any pins, so you will not be able to see this in the example. And so that's the Thunder cards. They're really special because they're more like instantaneous cards you can play in any moment. Okay, so Nitro cards. This is your resource. Every Nitro card costs 1 action point, and that's that gray, almost stop sign, like a bus sign, and it's white. So every Nitro card into play costs 1 action. Every time you put one down, it increases in size to let you know what you can play, and they stay on the field unless a card makes you remove them or you have an ability, whatever, and you do not tap them uh, to play cards. They just stay on the field. Their main special bonus is that if you have more nitro than your opponent does, when you attack them, you do +1 damage with your attack, with your special move. And that's pretty much all you need to know about nitro cards. When you're activating a move, the in the upper left hand corner, you have N for nitro. You need to have this many nitros on the field before you can play this card. So for Moonsault, it's 3, which is perfect because I have up to 3. I don't have them on the field right now because I haven't played my turn yet. But in theory, as soon as I played all 3 of these, I would be able to play Moonsault next. It also still has the action card on there, with the white symbol, and this one says 2, so it costs 2 action points to play. And then followed by on the lower left-hand side here, it has the D symbol for damage 5. That means this card will do 5 card damage, make the opponent flip over 5 cards from their library, from their main deck, unless they flip over abilities and there other things happen. But they will take up to 5 damage just from this card alone, if you don't have any other abilities going for you. And those are the main 3 cards that you will play in this game. There is an additional card called a corner card, and it's very similar to Nitro cards. The only difference is when you play them, they stay on the field like a Nitro card, and then they are removed from play depending on what the card is required for you to do. So there might be a corner card where it says like, oh, you need to discard this in order to activate the ability, etc., etc., etc. Now, you can also play additional wrestlers in your deck. However, the main thing that is important to know for the wrestlers is that they share the same number of action points you do. They don't follow the tag team variants, if you which I'll explain later. They don't follow those rules. They get the same. They share the same number of action points as you do. However, and you need to have cards that specifically say you can use your buddy wrestler at that moment. However, there are quite a few like the few cards that do enable you to do that do a lot of damage. So that's like the reason to have an additional wrestler. Again, not in these decks because none of these decks have those bonus cards to do so, but that is an option in the base set of the game. And if you have if any corner cards or wrestler cards are on the field, they cannot be the same wrestler that's on the field on your side. So I can, for example, have a Jeff Jarrett card, which is the opponent. I can have him on the field as well. I just cannot have 2 Jeff Jarretts on the field, on my side of the field. And that's what you need to know for the card types and placements. Now, We'll go through a few simulated turns for you to understand the main rules here, and then we'll go on from here. Now, I am going to start. Buff Bagwell is, and every turn starts by drawing a card, and I drew an additional dodge, so all my Thunder cards are in my hand, which is a bad sign. And then I get to, there we go. So I get to decide what I'm going to do here. You get 3 action points. And the action points are the little white symbols in the corner. So I could, in theory, play 3 Nitro cards. I could play a card that costs 2 action points, although I can't really because I don't have the Nitro for it. But you get the picture. Is that you have 3 action points, and all these cards cost different actions. Playing a Nitro card costs 1. Playing a move card costs however many points it costs. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. There's a few of them that even cost 3. And then the other one is that you can pay 1 Nitro to draw a card. I mean, sorry, 1 action point to draw a card. Sorry about that. And those are all the actions you can really do in a turn. Now, there are a few cards that you can play on your opponent's turn that cost action points, and those are really the only time you'll ever want to save your action points. Majority of the time, you'll want to spend them, all 3 right away. And that's the currency economy in this game. So yeah, as I said, we're going to start up Buff Bagwell's turn. He drew his card. He has 8 cards in hand. And because of how many dodge cards I have in my hand, like all my defensive capabilities, and also because of my lack of combat moves in this hand, I'm going to use his special ability, Buff Bagwell's, which is once a round, which is once a game. You may beat a stuff and shuffle your hand into your deck and draw as many cards as you shuffled in. This doesn't cost any action points. Now, unless specified, typically this means you can do this anytime you want. It is not explained ever in the FAQ if you have to do it only on your turn. So I will activate this ability, and I will shuffle all 8 cards into my deck and draw 8 additional cards. That way I can hopefully put more of those Thunder cards in there for a better defensive position with the deck. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, this is pretty good. We got 3 Nitro and 5 action moves. So I like that quite a bit. For this turn, this will be a prep turn, in which I'll use all 3 action points to put down Nitro, 3 Nitro. And now, one thing I do recommend is if you are the kind to save your Nitro, I'd recommend using dice to let you know how many you have remaining and put it on top of your character card. Just as like a fresh reminder. So Buff Bagwell does that for his turn. Now it's Jeff Jarrett's turn and draws the card. Now let's see what he has. Ouch. He's in a lot of hurt. He has 2 Nitro and 7 abilities. And almost all of his abilities cost more than 1 Nitro. So in order to try and get him out of this jam, I'm going to use his special ability, which is once a round, I may strut and get 2 extra action points this turn. So I will do that to give him 5. And the reason for it is I am going to spend 2 Nitro to put down 2 cards. 2 action points to get 2 Nitro. Then I'm going to spend 1 action point to draw a card. And I got very lucky and I drew a Nitro card. I'm going to put that down. So I spent total of 4 so far to put down 3 and draw a card. and then I'm going to draw another card and hope for a Nitro. I didn't get a Nitro. I got Face Punch. However, this is kind of unfortunate because I'm going to be in a bit of a predicament when it's Buff Bagwell's turn. But the good thing is I have a lot of cards that I can play at this moment next turn to do some damage if I want to have him do some damage. You know, get the lead out. So the key thing that's important to know is to remember is that these abilities are once around, so they can no longer be used anymore after the time they used them. So then I will draw a card. Got Flying Elbow from the top rope. Now, something to remember here is because I have Moonsault, which is 3 Nitro, 2 action, and Flying Elbow from the top rope. That's a total of 3 action points that I could spend right now to put their hurting onto Jeff. I can't play Body Slam because that costs 5 Nitro, and overall, this doesn't seem like a good combination to do. Because I'm tied for Nitro, because he has 3, I have 3, I do not get the +1 bonus damage. However, Moonsault and Flying Elbow from the top are both blues, so that means +1 additional damage. Now, when playing multiple cards, you assign the order in which the cards are going to be played. So for this one, I want Moonsault to go first, and then I want Flying Elbow to go second. Jeff Jarrett has no counters in his hand to play, so he has to take the direct damage. Moonsault does 5 + 1, so Jeff takes 6. 1, 2. Jeff drew Thunder card Dodge into his discard pile. Stops the rest of the damage from this attack. So 4 damage is no longer dealt from Moonsault. Now Flying Elbow from the top rope then continues. 1, 2, 3. Alright, and that was an attack phase. Now the good news is from this one is because Buff did not draw any Nitro cards. This leads a good opening for Jeff if he draws a Nitro card. And he didn't. He drew a dodge card, which is even worse because he could have prevented a lot of damage from doing so. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and figure some things out. Okay, so with the 3 action points, Jeff Jarrett is going to spend it to do a missile dropkick, which is 7 green damage. Because they're tied for Nitro, he doesn't do bonus damage, but Jeff Jarrett gets a +1 to his damage. Buff Bagwell has no bonuses for this, no ways to stop it, so he's just going to start taking damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He lost a lot of Nitro and not that many action cards. So that's going to be very bad for him in the future in case Jeff draws more Nitros to start playing. And those are pretty much the test sample that you need to see in order to learn how to play it. The main thing that is not shown in the rule book are the tag team rules. And you can only get them by finding them on the website online for Wizard of the Coast, and they got rid of that section of the website quite a while ago. Luckily, some people have preserved those rules, and they're available on the internet, which I will go ahead and recite almost verbatim. The thing that you need to do is that when doing a when doing a tag team, is that the player who is your buddy, they have it to where they recommend you play on opposite sides, so that way you get in the habit of rotating control of, teammate, opponent, opponent. So, like that. And then you and your partner decide who goes first. Who stays who's the primary person in the ring, and then as soon as that is decided for both players, then the reputation checks are put into play. So, let's say I have Buff going first. He has a reputation of 7. That means more than likely, if someone else is playing a big dog, who has a reputation, they'll go first. They'll go second. That sort of thing. So it could be a good tactical decision to do, to decide the reputation stuff right then and there. The other part is whoever is in the ring, they get their 3 action points per turn, like normal. Meanwhile, anyone who is not in the ring at that time gets 1 action point on their turn. Yeah, if your partner, outside the ring plays corner cards, or you tag your partner and you have corner cards, they are treated as if they are owned by both people at the same time. So the person outside the ring can use a corner card. The person inside the ring can use a corner card. Activate their abilities and such. You just put them in the proper discard pile after they're used. In order to beat somebody for the match, you have to beat the person in the ring. So you have to make them lose all their cards in their deck when they're in the ring. If they're not tagged when you do it, if they're not the active participant, they don't. The team does not lose. It's only the person who's the active partner in the ring. That is the person that will initiate the lose-win scenario, the objective. Tagging costs 3 action points. You cannot tag again right after on the next turn. I don't know why you would, but that is the thing. Maybe there might have been like future expansions where like tagging would give you like a special bonus. Now, if the referee is distracted when you make the tag, both players can enter the ring. Both the tag team and the new active person can enter the ring, and then on that person's turn, the new tag person, both can attack on the same turn to do like a whole bunch of extra damage. If the referee is not distracted, there's certain cards that will say whether or not a referee is distracted or not. If you don't have any of those cards, the referee is always paying attention. If the referee is not distracted and both players are in the ring when they do an attack, as they start flipping the cards over, if an opponent has a disqualification thunder card when it flips over, that team immediately loses the game because they're disqualified for having too many people in there. And then if you want to have both people, if both people are still in the ring, they're doing their thing, they can spend 3 points to get out on their turn. And yes, those are the main things you need to know about playing WCW Nitro, the card game. I feel like I'm missing out on something that I need to mention, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So, hope you enjoyed that, and have a good day, everybody.